All right, everyone. The other day, a memo was leaked from the IRS. This is an internal draft memo saying that the IRS needed to comply with Congress' request to hand over Trump's tax info. That directly contravenes what Mnuchin has said. The Treasury is saying, no, we can't do that, and we won't. We won't comply. So the IRS is acting independently in that manner. Now, here's one of those weird situations that we've had so many of where we don't really know what's going on. The IRS memo itself says, yeah, we're going to comply with Congress. But the IRS now, their head is coming out saying, well, this was an internal memo not meant to be released. It's just a draft memo. The idea is you'd have multiple drafts. It doesn't necessarily say what you're in finality going to say. It's just drafted by your lawyers as a contingency, so to speak. So you'd have one letter that says they'll comply, the other that says they'll don't, and they bicker internally. It's funny that the IRS lawyers get to basically police their own agency. It's funny how these agencies literally dick around and bicker with themselves over what their own rules are. Possibly because this is basically unprecedented. Here you have a Congress out of control that is not constrained constitutionally. The federal judge that ruled against Trump's attempt to block their subpoena of his material, he's absolutely right. There's no constitutional stricture on their current behavior. Schiff and Pelosi and the others can run roughshod over the legal system because the only alternative is to open up Congress to judicial review and its investigative procedures. That would be a disaster. I would much rather have an unruly Congress that's only constrained if Trump invokes executive privilege. I would rather have that situation, bad as it may be for Trump's optics, bad as it may be ultimately for, the proper order of our legislature, because it's just obstruction. Bad as it may be for getting things accomplished, because it's a fucking waste of time. Shitty as though it may be, shifty as though it may be, because it's clearly a partisan hack job. There was never any smoke, therefore there's probably no fire. There is no legitimate reason why Congress needs Trump's tax returns. But the alternative is still worse. The alternative is that we allow essentially federal court judges that are appointed by presidents anyway, to allow them to constrain Congress in their investigative procedures. That means you could have a shitty president who has, the Ninth Circuit protects them from even being investigated by the U.S. House. That'd be a fucking disaster for the transparency of our government, especially at the executive level. Conversely, you could have a situation where the judges weaponize things against a president or against any other executive branch member, someone in the cabinet or whatever. It's a terrible, terrible idea. So terrible as it may be, Trump should basically just fight this, as much as he can if he truly doesn't want to release the info and hope that the Republicans retake the House in 2020, which is entirely possible. Look, the Democrats aren't trying to build a coherent platform. What's their platform? Orange man bad, we want to raise your taxes, and by the way, we just stripped back the president's war-making authority with regards to the Middle East a little bit because we don't want him attacking Iran, which is surreal. They're the ones that were talking about that. Hillary Clinton alluded to it multiple times in 2016. Now they're pretending Trump's a warmonger for saying he doesn't want to go to war and simply pointing out casually the very real truth that in a war with Iran, although there are technically no winners because it would inflame the Cold War, Iran loses. They get completely destroyed. Tehran is in ashes. That's simply the way that it is. Pointing that out is not warmongering. It's not saying that's what you want to happen. It's just pointing out that's what will happen if that occurs, if there's a war. Hopefully there won't be. So we've got this draft memo. It's being contradicted by the IRS. Mnuchin arguably has the ability to resist it anyway. Trump can invoke executive authority over the whole situation and simply is held off. What Trump's trying to do, what the House is trying to do is force him to do that. They're trying to wiggle their way through this in such a way that they force him to take executive action to defend himself and his cabinet. That way they can say, aha, he's obstructing. We can impeach him now. Well, will that actually happen? This could blow up in the Democrats' face very easily. That's why, again, I'm glad that the federal court didn't rule in favor of Trump on this particular issue. Yeah, let the fight go forward. We'll see if Schiff actually has the balls, number one, and potentially the lunacy, the fucking craziness involved that would be required to make this sort of decision, to force Trump to use executive authority and enter an impeachment battle with him. I don't even know that the Democrats have the ability to do that. I don't know that it would hold up even within their party. Pelosi's alluded to it. They're trying to force him to take executive action. And in regards, I guess he'll have to choose whether his entire business dealings are worth the trade-off of basically saying fuck you to the Democrats. He can just let him take the info and say, okay, well, you know, I did the best that I can. The court says I have to give you my tax returns. Okay, but now you're going to see how rich I really am. And again, on paper, he's not going to look quite as rich because a lot of his holdings are in property. But, you know, if you have dozens of skyscrapers, each valued at tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, yeah, you're a billionaire because at any time you can liquidate all that shit. He's already made a return 10 times over on all of his investments, probably anyway, at least the ones that paid off. I think Trump's stakes and, you know, the Atlantic City stuff didn't work out. But Trump's vineyard seems to be doing well. He has $100 million a year or more in rent alone and that was quite some years ago, so it's probably higher now. It's not like he hasn't built other things since then. Why do you think he has a Mar-a-Lago, a fucking palatial mansion better than the White House? Spends so much time there. To him, the White House is quaint. Do you really want to get into a debate with Trump over wealth and wealth creation? I wouldn't want to. Hey, lowered my taxes. I think he's a great guy on economics. Jobs keep being created. We're at a 50-year low in unemployment. I don't see the problem. Why is it that so many people on the left, they're brain dead when it comes to this issue? It's like they'd like to debate over whether Trump is good with money. Yes, he is clearly, objectively, observably good with money. You're not going to win this particular battle. You've got to be fucking crazy if you're Schiff. Schiff wants to poke the bear. He might end up getting mauled. Because what might end up happening, here's a surreal situation that we can consider. What if Trump's like, yeah, everything's completely above board with my taxes. I know this. I'm probably worth more than I've claimed publicly. I know this. Got all these properties, got so much income. Yeah, let him release that to the public. Let him look into it as much as he wants. But I'm going to make him fight for it, make it look like I'm going to invoke executive privilege. I hope that's the case. I hope that this is a trap for the Democrats that he's been setting since the 2015 era. I hope that this is a trap to get the Democrats to stumble blindly, like a cow bitten in the face by a fucking rattlesnake, stumbling into a fucking landmine. That's what I hope ends up actually happening. Part of me believes it might be true. Trump doesn't seem all that concerned and perturbed. I don't think that he loses sleep at night, although he supposedly only sleeps 4 or 5 hours. By the way, he should probably up that a little bit. You know, once you hit 70, you should allow yourself that extra half hour or something. It's probably not a bad idea. Maybe that's the secret to immortality. You just drive yourself, insane as a workaholic. I don't see the problem here. There's never been any indicator. I've never been offered any evidence by anyone in Congress or anyone else at the legacy media or even Trump's most vicious critics have never said what justification there would be for looking into his taxes. What evidence is there? What reasonable suspicion do you have that he's committed tax evasion or fraud or something like that? There's never been any. You got a financial... Maddow digs out a already public financial form and shows he's got fucking more wealth year over year than he's claiming. Yeah, I know, he probably paid more taxes than Biden. The only thing that they're going to find is that back in the 90s, before the tax system was significantly reformed, and Trump has admitted to this multiple times and even used it as a campaign issue, he's proud of the fact that he ended up basically paying nothing back in the 90s, because on paper it made it look like he had a bunch of business losses even though he was soaring ahead. That's the tax code written by Democrats from the era. A bunch of Democrats and Reagan Republicans designed the old tax code. Trump has fundamentally reformed it more. The tax code was reformed largely on, I believe it was the late Clinton era, essentially. The tax code gets overhauled, I think, through the early Bush era. I know Obama changed it around with regards to business taxes. And some of that for the better, some of that for the worse, arguably. Trump has reformed it further. But the tax code at the time allowed him to take a bunch of deductions. Basically, he could write off the fucking tissue he sneezes in back then as a business deduction and walk away with his own massive personal income and pay less taxes because it looks like he's hemorrhaging money. But he didn't design the tax code. They used to consult him as an expert all the time, drag him before Congress and ask him questions on everything up to and including foreign policy. He's been doing this for decades. I do not believe he cheated on his taxes. And by the way, let me theoretically say he did. And we find out, oh yeah, by the way, he embezzled $100 million, 20 years ago. Fucking who gives a fucking shit? I don't care. Didn't happen while he was in office, number one. He's not even, part of his business empire at this point. Doesn't affect my personal life in any degree. His tax reforms now as president have affected me, largely for the positive. Yeah, thank you, Trump. You saved me thousands of dollars. I still got hammered anyway, but, this is how it works. You should cut taxes in half again. That would make me a happy camper. That'd be a good thing. I don't care about Trump's taxes. I've never cared about it. This is basically just obstruction investigation light. This is basically Mueller probe 2.0. They're going to keep it going forever to hold it over his head and try to hamstring him. And they've just continuously done this, and they keep losing. You're not going to win, I don't think. I think that Trump's going to walk away smelling like a rose in 2020, get a second term, and then he's going to laugh at these people. That's about all. Peace out.